What's up everybody, this is Boywithafishtank, and today I'm bringing you an African cichlid video. And in this video I wanted to talk about Plecostomus and how to actually keep Plecostomus with African cichlids, because you guys might have noticed that I have a gigantic Plecostomus in my African cichlid tank, and a lot of people has been asking me how I made it possible, and where I got that big Pleco and things like that. So I'm just going to run over all of those topics really quick. But if you guys are wondering, all of the Aurosis fry are living happy and healthy. Actually, in my old Aurosis fry tank, which is now the Guppy tank, as you can see right there, that is my reef tank and there's the Guppy tank. But it was actually, I was having it shut down, I was about to drain out all of the water, and then suddenly I saw a very small cichlid fry just swimming out, and I was wondering how I didn't even notice it. So apparently only one of my Aurosis fry died, but the Aurosis fry I found in the tank could barely swim, and he had a really empty belly. He was very, in a very unhealthy state, let's just say it like that. I just immediately catched him and I put him over here and acclimated him to the tank. The other cichlids didn't really mind. I gave him a lot of food, some mice shrimp and some things like that, and he was getting really fat. He was getting heavy. He found his other tank mates, and he just got happy. So that was really nice to see. But yeah, so he's doing well. So there are 7 Aurosis fry in this tank. But anyway, let's talk about Plecostomus. Plecostomus are actually a really hardy species of fish, and this fish is a very common fish known for actually eating plants and tearing apart plants and destroying everything in a planet tank, for example. But that is not entirely true. You can keep Plecostomus in all types of tanks. They don't really mind plants, so they'll of course try to eat off some of the bigger algae on the bigger plants, like salt plants and things like that. But that is just because that is just their natural behavior. They don't eat the plant, but they eat the algae sitting on the salt, and then they might eat some of the salt with it. But that's another part of the story. But really, they are excellent to clean your glass, and they will do a really great job at keeping your tank clean, especially a big African cichlid tank, because in a big African cichlid tank you're often going to have troubles with algae because of the fact that you're going to overstock in some part. You should overstock, in my opinion, because that's the only way you really can control your aggression levels, and by doing so you'll increase your nitrate and phosphate levels a lot. And that will just cause a lot of algae to grow, blackbird algae, green algae, brown algae, spot algae, everything. And you can just see my Pleco in the back there. He was just bashing his tail. He's really gigantic, and you can see him in the start of the video. He's probably like from here to about there. That is how big he is. He's gigantic. And some people were asking me where I got this Pleco. One of my friends was he had a really big tank. Well, it was not a really big tank, but it was bigger than mine at that point. It was like, I think 120 liters, about 30 gallons or something. And he had a lot of strange fish in there. He had puffers, he had a Plecostomus, he had some really cool tetras and black ghost knives and just a lot of weird stuff. But he also had guppies, and he bred a lot of guppies as well. But one thing that he just had really uniquely about his tank was this gigantic Plecostomus. So he bought this Plecostomus in about the size of these Aurosis fry to start with. I can clearly remember the day where he bought it, because at that point in time we were going to this Christian class sort of thingy, because we were getting confirmed and things like that, and there was some things in the morning where we had to go to some Christian stuff that was really boring, by the way, because I'm not Christian, I'm not religious, you guys know that. But every time we went home, well, not went home, but went further on to the school, and we always stopped by my friend and I, we always stopped by him, and we would look at his tank and things like that and see how everything was going. It was really fun. And this Pleco was just really tiny, but after like I think like a couple of months it got gigantic. At that point in time he would rather have reptiles, so he wanted a turtle. That's why he got a turtle now. But he wanted a turtle instead of an aquarium. He kind of lost the interest in aquariums, so he asked me and one of my other friends that also had an aquarium if we wanted some of the fish that were in there, and he suggested to me that he could give me the big Pleco, because you know he said that he think it could be a really nice idea for the big Cichlid tank and things like that. So I got the big Plecostomus and I've had him for soon like a year now or something. He's getting gigantic, like he keeps growing and growing and growing. And that's one problem with you know Plecostomus, they grow really fast. And you know, but he keeps the tank clean, you know, these beautiful red rocks, if they wouldn't be this red and beautiful and clean if this Pleco wasn't in here, because then it would just be a mess. So it's really nice that he's in here and he cleans everything up. That's why I also got driftwood in here. Actually, this is a thing you guys have to remember. I made a Plecostomus care video back in the days, you know, back in the days where I still had a girly voice. But you know, back in the days I made a Pleco care video, and you can check that out if you want. There's a little bit of you know, care tips and things like that on there. And what I said was that driftwood was a good idea to have for Plecos. And the reason for that is because they have these jaws with these teeth. Like African cichlids also got teeth, and they scrape their teeth against rocks and hard material to kind of scrape it down. And you know, like hamsters need to eat something hard to actually, you know, kind of get down their teeth so that they won't overgrow. And the same thing for Plecostomus, just not in quite the same way. But it can get so big, you know, teeth or barbel sort of thingies, that it can actually damage its own jaw, so that you don't want to do that. But if you get driftwood, it can scrape against the driftwood, and it's best to have driftwood because they like, they actually like chewing on driftwood as well. That is some weird hobby they have. Yeah, they do. And people think they're really boring fish and things like that, but I actually don't think so, because mine actually swims around quite often, and he looks really awesome when he does. He also cleans the glass and things like that. He often sits on the glass and there's like this big monster like sitting here. It's crazy. But yeah, I'm really happy for this guy. Very easy to take care of. And let's just talk in general about how to actually keep these guys in an African Cichlid tank. Excuse me, there's some mathematics I gotta put up here. There we go. But anyway, what is really important when you put a Plecostomus in an African Cichlid tank is, of course, the general rule, which is that the fish has to be big. You know, the bigger the fish, the less chance, or well, the less risk you'll have for the cichlids to actually pick at them. Because mostly fish don't really like to bite at Plecos, because they have this plating sort of thing going around their body, and it has these sharp edges, and whenever a fish bites in them, it just feels really uncomfortable, so they won't really enjoy biting in them as much. But if they're small, they'll just harass it and kill it because of it. But if it's big enough and its plating is big, you know, it's panzer sort of thing, that will assure you that he will be okay. Actually, none of my fish even wants to bother the Pleco. They don't even want to get near him. And the reason is, he's pretty scary, I guess. You can just see him right there. He's sitting on my driftwood once again. He likes to bite in the driftwood. But what you guys really have to understand is that you got to have a big Pleco to make sure that it can go well in an African Cichlid tank. Because even if you got small cichlids like these smaller roses fry, they're going to nib at it anyway. They don't care. So you gotta make sure that you know, get a big Pleco and things like that. And then the general rules of keeping Plecos, which is feeding them some algae every now and again. They eat seaweed, cucumbers, everything. I feed mine some seaweed every now and again. He really enjoys that. Some pellets, some things like that. But he's getting so big now that he pretty much eats anything he can fit in his mouth. So, you know, I also have had some weird questions about Synodontis catfish, if they can go together with Synodontis. I can tell you from my own experience, I've kept Synodontis and Plecostomus together for a very, very long time now, and I haven't had any problems. They're just, you know, chilling around. They don't really fight each other as much. You know, the Synodontis of course fight each other, but they don't fight the Pleco. They of course sometimes bash their tails at each other, but I think that's because they're so big. But they don't really harm each other in any way or harass each other, so they can easily go together with you know, Synodontis catfish, and they don't really require the same foods as Synodontis catfish, because Synodontis catfish eats, you know, leftover things. They're scavengers, whereas Plecostomus are more the you know, the algae eater, but they are actually also a scavenger. A lot of people don't think they are, but they're actually a scavenger too. So, but yeah, that's really all I have to tell you guys about Plecostomus. They're really easy to keep with African cichlids. They're very, I think they're actually very cool too. I think they're very attractive fish actually. They got really big, beautiful fins that flow around the water, and they got these spots everywhere and things like that, and they're really entertaining to watch. You see him right there. He's awesome. I really like this guy. He's just really cool. But yeah, that's really all I got to say about Plecostomus and African cichlid tanks. They're very easy to keep in African cichlid tanks. Great choice for African cichlid tanks to keep the algae control going. Good cleanup crew together with some Synodontis. And yeah, that is basically all I have to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys in another video.